The Monday Charter, which I shared with a number of you. Okay. The name of all of our ancestors. We ask for their grace and their permission so we can speak and bring to each one what you most need to grow and advance today. From wherever you are right now, to step up from within yourself. And so 2 points I want to look at in the Monday Charter today. The very first thing, now the actual text talk about the hunters say. You see, every paragraph starts with the hunters say, or the hunters have decided. Even though the emperor, Sundiata Keita, is the one who spoke, but he did not speak in his name. He spoke in the name of the hunters. And those are the people who protect the nation and spiritually, physically.
Uh-oh. It looks like Ma just dropped out. Not a good sign.
She'll need to repeat. Yep.
Yes.
All right. So I said,
Okay.
even though the emperor, Sundiata Keita, was the one who delivered this talk, every paragraph started with the hunters say, or the hunters have decided. Because the emperor, we have to understand, in their democracy, the emperor was a mouthpiece and a decision person. But all the workings of how things are done, what is to be said, how to present it, is done collectively with the hunters. And in the mind we're in today, we think of hunters, people who go after animals. No, no. Hunters are, it's a military structure that defends the nation, protects the nation, spiritually and militarily. Did that get through?
Yes.
Okay. So the very first thing then says, the hunters declare that all life is a life. Even though it is true that certain life appear before others, but no life is older than another or more respectable than another. In that way, every life has the same value, is actually what the very first law established in 1221 is. It's not even talking about human lives. It just talks about life forms. Okay. So we have to really try to understand those older texts in the right context so we don't go astray from what they really want to bring as a message. The second paragraph says, being that all life is equal, has equal value, any wrong done to a life demands reparation. Any wrong done to any life demands reparation. Therefore, no one should, without great cause, harm his neighbor. No one should create wrong to the person next to him. No one should martyriser. What would be martyriser? You know, it's when they do a whole bunch of terrible things to you. Cut your nose, cut your lips, castrate the man, you know, a whole list of all kind of wrongdoings. So no one has the right to do this to anyone. Now that's the law we set out, 1221. Keep remembering the date, 1221. Then there's a chapter on, there's a paragraph on the love of nation. Everyone is duty bound to watch after the land of your fathers, because any country, any land that will see all his humans go away from its surface would decline and become desolate. We are shocked as to what's going on in Africa after Africa lost more than half the population. When Euro Christians came and kidnapped, even though I hear them talk about 20 millions, 30 millions, ha, ha, ha. Those are the numbers they feel is okay with their conscience. But until we come up with our own math to do the calculations, we can't begin to figure it out. But one thing is certain, a lot of our people speak about the continent lost nearly half its population over all the years of wars and kidnapping and slaughtering and all of that. So now we need to figure out what the numbers are. Some of them are talking about 800 million. We'll have to see. But we need to take it seriously. Now the 5th paragraph talks about abolition of slavery and famine. Now the most important thing to me about this chapter is the fact that they always put famine and slavery together. To me, they are indicating to us, anyone who creates famine into a nation is already working towards enslaving the people. And we can see this all over. In Haiti, for example, Haiti is a blessed land. We can harvest 3 to 4 times a year. And one time I took the time, I planted a corn. Corn takes about 3 months to be ready. And a ear of corn has minimum 200 to 400 seeds. So one, what you don't call it the tree, one stem of corn, what is that called?
I think a stalk.
The stalk, thank you. One
stalk, okay. Yeah.
of corn can give you 2 or 3 ears. Now, just one stalk, but you have enough to plant. So whenever you have you're harvesting, yes, you'll have to eat, but there's no reason for you not to have for the next 3 months. Because there's plenty of seed for you to continue. So in a country like this, when people are going wanting for food, it cannot happen by chance. It can only happen by determination, programming, politics. For us to go hungry, someone has to plan our hunger and of course lead it to famine. And of course they have a purpose. We have to understand that. There is an agronomer here. Nobody listens to him, but the man has the most fabulous program for IT. he takes all the things that could be grown between 2 to 3 months. And if they were to be planted on so many acres, I don't have the, I've not retained the numbers. But let's say on every 5 acres of land, if you planted potatoes, in 3 months, you'll have plenty of potatoes to eat. If you planted tomatoes, you plant beans and this, that, and the other, within 3 months, every Haitian could eat as much as they want to. Because we have that kind of land and we have that kind of food. But instead, the world program for us is to bring us this and that from different countries. And please, those things they bring to us, you will find it's very hard today to find oranges with seed, or grape with seeds, or any fruit with seed. Why? They usually have seeds, right? So if they're bringing you fruits and vegetables and stuff that you cannot replant, there is a plan for you to starve you, to bring in famine. Okay. So please, those of you who have requested the papers, do read them. Do analyze them. Do question them. Do draw from what you read your opinions, your understanding, and principles by which you can improve your own life. To me, that's the purpose of this. It's not to say, I have the charter that was 1221, I can recite it by heart. We don't care about that. But what do you draw from it when you read it? What do you see that is going on now in front of your eyes? Okay. Some of us are talking about reparations. But if we knew that our ancestor said that reparation was a must for any wrong done to people, would there be a big debate? I'm against reparation, I'm for reparation, I'm blah, blah, blah reparation. No, there is no debate there. But we're doing it from our personal point of view. So it's pretty weak. How many of you have read? Those of you who requested it last week, how many of you have read it?
Marlene Jean read it.
Mm-hmm. And what have you drawn from it?
You have to unmute, Marlene.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I've read some of it. I didn't read the whole thing. I'm pretty shocked that how things were already set in motion for us. I mean, it's a sheer miracle that we are here. Literally. I'm still reading it. Yeah.
I'm still reading it too, and I've been reading it for about 15 years. So, we never, text like that, you never finish reading it. Every time you come back to it, you find more.
Something new, yeah.
And when you look at what's going on in the news and then you read it, you find even more.
Yes.
Freedom of action and words. That's one of the seventh one. Freedom of action and words. Do we know what is freedom of action? Do we understand what it means? And is it every time we open our mouth, we are speaking from freedom of words? If you forever repeating what others have said, Are you speaking from freedom? We gotta work, we gotta work. Situation is very complicated. Without creating.
Hey, everybody. All right, it looks like my Bello's connection is a little choppy today, but she was back very quickly last time. She'll be back again shortly. She's already back.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. We were talking of freedom of words, you know? Freedom of thoughts is not mentioned here, but that's where it starts. If you do not allow yourself to think for yourself, if you forever enslaved in thoughts that they have already given, they've already put out there. See, people who are following fashion, these are slaves. You don't ask yourself, does this fit me? Does it become me? Does this? No, that's in fashion. That's what I have to wear. Everything, it does not fit everybody. Everything does not become everyone. So we have to have the kind of mind that when we put something on, we look at it and we say, not for me. Or yes, that's me. So that's when you have freedom of thoughts. And that's where it all starts. If you can think freely, then you will also know you have to choose your words. Not because it's in fashion. It's like some people saying, oh, no, we can't say white people, black people. Why not? Why not? We didn't invent it, that's for sure. I found nowhere people have defined human beings by the color of their skins, neither from Africans nor from Tainos, Arawak. Neither in either one of our ancestries, we do not identify people by the color of their skins. Okay? But the Euro-Christians decided that was the way to do it, and they have. And now they don't feel comfortable with what they have created. So they tell us, oh no, it's not politically correct to use it. Well then, I decide. That's what I will use until I decide a new name for you. But I'm not taking the new name you give. If you're a thinking person, you have to do this. You have to analyze things and understand when they're trying to take you somewhere. Generally, it's not the best place for you to go. So we're still looking at the charter, the Monday charter. The Monday charter. What was it called, Monday charter?
Did it have something to do with Mandinka? Mandinka tribe?
Manding. You say, the French say Monday, of course, that's another thing. Each Euro-Christian colonizer will take the name of a country or a people, and then they do whatever they want with it. And that too, we have to stop. We have to make up our minds or make a choice and stick to it. Manding, Mandingo, Mandin, Mandé, French, British, US, each of them have a name for it. So sometimes you might find the charter, it's the same charter, but you find that depending on who published it, you will find there is a difference. So whether we have to learn to do this, whether we find that MANDEE, that's the French.
All right, everyone. I actually have a copy of the charter right here with me. So I printed it out for last week's episode. So I'll make sure that I download it and I send it out tonight when I send out the recording of today's program. It's a very good read, by the way.
Is that something I sent to you or that you?
No, I found this on my own. I Googled it, but I do realize that there are a couple of different versions.
I'd rather see it before we send it out.
Yes, I'll make sure I get the professor approved version.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I got a message from Charles, who's with Dr. Jeffries, and they'll be joining us very shortly. So they apologize for running behind.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Number 6 is to reject violence. To reject violence. And, you know, I'm reading from the French. You just stop us whenever they're in, but we have to make the best of the time we have together. All right. Man as an individual is made of bones, flesh, and nerves. He has skins covered with hair. He eats food and drinks, but his soul, his spirit, needs 3 things. Our soul and spirit needs 3 things. See what we desire to see. Say what we want to say. And go where we want to go. If only one of these things would not be possible for a human soul, that soul will suffer and dwindle away, certainly. Everyone must be free and responsible for all their acts. So when we are in situation where people claim democracy, freedom, and all of that, and they're saying we can't go there and we couldn't go here, they go everywhere with no visa, but we need 10,000 tons of papers. What kind of democracy is that? And very often the final decision is just on the whim of whoever is deciding. Nothing to do with your papers, really. Okay. So, violence is a nice word. What is violence? When is it violence? When is it the application of force to reestablish freedom or justice? We have to think on these things. We must think on them. The nation is also another word. We need to figure out, what do we call a nation? What is our nation? When do we have a nation? All right, Munir Kabag gave us a nice explanation here about the mundane Bambara, the Pearl. It's a large family of ethnic groups within the African family. Well, let's take a couple of questions from what we have spoken so far.
If you have a question at the moment, you could just, while we're waiting on our guests, you could just go ahead and unmute and ask a question.
I have a question. My question is, when you're raising your child and you discipline them with some physical force, does that fall on?
Oh, I'm sorry, I muted you by accident. Could you unmute yourself again?
Yes, I have a question. My question is about raising children and what is the correct balance between violence and forced action on a child. My whole understanding is that when you apply force in the form of spanking, there's some seed of violence that you plant in this child's being. And how do you know, or what wisdom should one have as far as understanding the line between violence and disciplining your child?
Excellent question. The number one thing I will say, our research has shown that prior to colonization and slavery, hitting children was not part of the African culture. I know the Hausas, even in the 70s, Hausa do not hit their children. Even after, after slavery, some of us did not get into this. They have many ways of correcting. And one sentence, one that stick to my mind was, somebody said to me once, well, if the child is 3 and you tap them, and when they are 10, then you have to hit them for them to feel it. And when they're 15, then you're gonna take your muscles and you're gonna knock them. What do you expect back? But you had this child from birth, and everything, you had the opportunity to put everything you wanted from birth. And even before birth, from the 5th month in the belly, there is so much we can teach them, if only we knew. And it's a whole rapport, the way that we interact with life. And I think this is right on when it says all life forms are valuable. We are not educated within this system to view the life that is within as having the same value as us carrying that life. And that's why they led us so well into a structure where it means nothing what you have in your belly. You can abort. You can kill it, slaughter it. You don't want it? You don't like it? Oh, you wanted a girl, you don't want a girl? Well, get rid of that one. Try again. Oh, you wanted it with blue eyes, right? So the thing in our belly is not a life. Therefore, when it comes, there is saying, I've noticed in many slave dominated cultures, we have sayings like in Haiti, we have a saying, children are little animals. They're not to be paid attention to. Children should be seen and not heard. We have tons and tons and tons of things that program us not to value our young ones. Whereas in contradiction within Haiti, we will hear these things in a society, but in Vodun, they say, if the children are present, even if they're playing, jumping, carrying on, they can do whatever they want. But their very presence will erase the mistakes the adults make in the ceremony. So that's two different worldviews of who the child is and how to treat children.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Marlene, did you have a question?
It was more like a comment to what you just read on the mundane charter about, I think it was, oh, I forgot. I think it was on the the violence. You spoke about, I think it was maybe the reparation and then went into violence. It was something you said that made it obvious that why we, back in Africa, back in ancient civilization, we didn't have structures in government like we have now, like the police. People says, oh, if we don't have the police, then what's gonna happen? But we do know there were a system. We had a system. And that system with George Floyd, for example, that person would have had to respond to an authority, would have known that, oh, if you did that, then we have to judge you. You took a life, so now we have to judge you on what's gonna happen to you. Mm-hmm. Here we are, where we're not even asking this question anymore. What should happen to the person who committed the crime? Some people feel like, well, it wasn't really a crime. Is it a crime? I mean, so just to go back to what you were reading, it's obvious that there was a system that actually was so intricate that it answered every question on every level, that you really didn't need a government because the community can take care of itself just following these principles. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew what they had to do. If something happened, they knew, well, what to do.
Very true. And in fact, as you speak, I see some of our Aborigines right here in America. Mm-hmm. There are certain things that you do. There was no prison. There's no police. There isn't any of those things that they, But if someone really did something wrong, I have not come across many ethnic groups where they would say, for example, a life for life, that if you kill somebody, they will kill you. No. But what often was the rule is, if you kill someone or you did something really terrible, then the entire nation rejects you. And you have to walk for so many months or so many miles away from us. You cannot be part of our nation anymore. Mm-hmm. That kind of punishment was, people were terribly afraid, because if I walk so many months, I'm gonna fall into some other people who don't know me, that I don't know, and I don't know what their rules will be, mm-hmm. So there's a lot for us to learn if we look back. That's why history is so important. They're always telling us it's either yes or no. That's not true. When we stand at the center, there are 180 possibilities in front of us and 180 possibilities behind us. We can have 180 no's and 180 yeses, each with their specific detail, nuances, etc. So, since we came back to let me read this. It says, the essence of slavery. Now, this is the chapter that says, le rejet de la violence, rejecting violence, okay? The essence of slavery is shut out on this day from one wall to the other of our nation. No razzia are banished from this day on in the mundane. What a terrible test and torment when an oppressed people has nowhere to report the oppression. Slavery will no longer will never again have any consideration in this part of the world. This is 1221. So you see, we can even see here that violence and slavery are also very much connected. There is no slavery without violence. You must have a well-structured violence system in order to have slavery.
All right, I think Dr. Jeffries has just come into the meeting room. Let us see.
This is the activity?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. I hear your voice, my brother.
Hey, hey.
How are you, Dr. J?
I'm doing fine, as
Sounds great.
fine. All right, we're trying to get ourselves together, and I think we have. You're looking very good. Hey.
Thank you. I'm waiting to see you. I know you're looking great, but the image is not there yet.
Uh-huh. Well,
Mhm.
she said energy is not there yet.
Maybe the video is not, your video is not on.
Why is this video not on? Oh, there you go. Got it. There you go.
I feel him coming. Uh-huh.
Getting
Yeah.
there. We're getting there.
Hey.
All right. Dr. J is in the house.
So Charles, should I be sitting there or sitting here? Where's the best spot?
Sit there for now. I'm gonna set up the laptop over here for you.
Oh, okay.
Hotep, Dr. J.
Hotep. Who's that, Charles?
866.
Okay. Very good, very good.
Newark in the house, sir. It's Brother Zaid.
Yes, excellent.
Stay, but I'm here for a minute.
Okay.
Nice to see you, Brother Zaid.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So let me sit properly so I can introduce the great Dr. Leonard Jeffries. Dr. Leonard Jeffries, have been to Haiti. He's come to celebrate Dessalines' birthday a number of times. And Dr. Jeffries has gone all around the world. I don't know how many times.
It's been many.
Yes, I know. It has to be many. Participate in all facets and faces of the Black world's fight for freedom. And of course, we could take all day to present him, but my particular hero in him is the legal boxer who took it and went to the courts and won the right for us to say what we wanted, what we had to say, what the truth was about our history. So please, Dr. Jeffries, welcome to Bayyinah and Friends.
Well, certainly, it's always a pleasure for me to be feeling very good when I'm dealing with people who are struggling righteously for African liberation. And so I know that you've been a special figure in that struggle and moving from continent to continent. And so when I had a chance, I've been to Haiti many times, starting in the 60s and in the 70s. But when I had a chance to go with you and your extended family, those young men and women, up to celebrate Dessalines, we actually took a slice of cake to take it all the way up to into the mountains and to the citadel. It was magnificent. I've had great experiences in my life, but that ranks way at the top with some of these others. So it's a pleasure to join people who are on the path, who have a mission. And clearly, you have manifested that. You've passed it on to other generations. You've linked up with other partners, like my special partner, Professor James Small.
Yeah.
So that I'm happy just at the thought of being connected to your great work. And I'm extra happy because I'm carrying on a tradition of these great brothers and sisters. Number one would be Dr. John Henry Clark. He was our elder leader, and he opened the doorway for us to achieve greatness in the African struggle. And then he had a partner from Harlem. These two brothers lived a couple of blocks from each other in Harlem, in the heart of Harlem. One lived on one side of the Schomburg Library, which is one of the greatest libraries in the world in terms of African peoples. And Dr. Ben lived right across the street from the Schomburg Center. So when you have had in your experience these great brothers and sisters, you know that you're moving in the right direction. But very rarely do you get a chance to go into the courts and take the question of our history and our culture and show the world that we can stand for something, and we have the clout and the power and the strength to win a victory against not just an individual. The court case was brought against the state of New York, the City University of New York, and the economic, the educational department of New York. So it was a monumental, great struggle for us. And to have seen the response coming from everywhere, it was a monumental victory for African peoples. So that I know that you're constantly in the struggle, and you know you can fall back on your great African respect for your African traditions. And I have that same type of persona. I know who I am, and I know where I want to go, and I have a whole lot of support to go there. But I know the deep African tradition that I stand on and refuse to move away from. So wherever I go, African tradition goes with me. Wherever I go, the ancestors and the spiritual power that they have generated, I can tap into. So we're on a victorious path, and we need to appreciate that. And we need to understand that that's part of what I call Professor Smalls and others, my wife, Dr. Len Jeffries, and a host of people that are with us. I call it, and I refer to it as our sacred mission. And so we have a responsibility to ourselves and to our ancestors and to the deep consciousness of our people going back hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And we do what we do because we have a responsibility to prepare a future for the future generations that will be a part of this enormous work that we've involved in. And it's necessary for us to redefine ourselves for ourselves, because we've been in an enormous battle. And one of our great elder scholars, close friend of Dr. Clark, and also myself, Dr. Chancellor Williams. And
Yes.
his great work was the destruction of Black civilization. And that's a classic work of talking about the struggle over the last few thousand years to restore ourselves. And then he did complement that work with another monumental work, which was the rebirth of African civilization. So that Chancellor Williams, and unfortunately, so many of us are Capricorn. I don't know how that happened, that so many of these scholars are Capricorn. And it's ironic how these relationships work. Dr. Clark is born January the 1st, and his partner in the struggle, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen, was born on December 31st. So when we celebrate Dr. Ben, December 31st, and when the clock hits 12 and we're into the new year, we switch the celebration and bring in Dr. Clark. So even the movement of the heavenly bodies and the birth of various parts of our community are connected. And so we appreciate that, and we want to make sure that our youngsters appreciate it also. And so that, as Frederick Douglass said it best, I don't know whether Frederick was a Capricorn. I don't think so, but so many of the scholars have been, and it's a coincidence, but it's a fair coincidence. If we go overseas, one of the friends in struggle that I was connected to is Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop. And Dr. Diop is the end of December also. And then another great African from Guinea who wrote the book L'Enfant Noir, The Black Child, which was a classic work of his growing up in Guinea. And that person is Kamar Ali.
Yes.
And I brought him to New York, and he was on my staff, Capricorn. And he was a very special spirit moving among us. So we don't want to get hung up on the question of the dates. However, I have two nephews. My brother, younger brother, he was born 21 months after I was born. And then he has two sons, and the product of a fantastic family tradition. And his number one son is born in August. That's when our grandfather was born, August the 10th. And this young man, Congressman Len Jeffries, he's born August the 4th, which it's an interesting connection because I'm looking at a poster involving King and Malcolm and Obama with some of the sisters in the struggle. And Obama was born August the 4th. So Hakeem is born August the 4th, 9 years later. But his younger brother, who's 2 or 3 years younger than Hakeem, he's born January the 13th. There, that Capricorn comes in again. He's the historian, and his brother is the political leader. So it's all good. It's all good. We need to connect as best we can. And I want to make sure I get back to the Grand Island as soon as possible so that we can meet on the sacred soil of Haiti and continue to make sure that we pull in the various parts of our world so that we have a Pan-African reality that can be empowered so that we can take on the great challenges we have that are clearly before us, and the generations coming up after us will have to accept these challenges. They can't run from it. They have to move into it, but they need the foundation that has been laid for them clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we do notice is the disconnect between generations. You know, as young people come up, sometimes they don't know of those, or many times here in Haiti in particular, I hear people say, oh, nobody has ever done, or nobody has ever written. And yet there are tons of material on the subject. So
Yes.
one of the things I think we need to really think through is how to create the connect, even though we know that school is the best way. But until we can create our own school, what kind of procedure we could establish so from one generation to the next, they know what has been done.
All right, give us one moment. He's switching to his laptop.
Okay.
Well, this technology has its place. And so I've switched to the actual computer setup. And so this is my cozy spot here. This is my TV room, and wall-to-wall books and tapes. And we've spent many an hour here. Question that you just raised, Queen Mother, is very important. Education is the key. And we have to develop a very sophisticated program of educating our young people. It's our responsibility. And if we fail to educate them properly, we cripple them because they have to be prepared to take on not just their own community, but there's a global community. And of course, it's centered around the European world because the European moved around the world hundreds of years ago and tried to make the world his special space and place. But you have emerging communities, such as the Asian community, and that's very diverse, such as the Arab community, and it is definitely diverse. And then you have the indigenous communities in the Western Hemisphere, and certainly the Latino communities. So that we have to understand that we're part of a global community, and we have to take a leadership role in that community. And unfortunately, some of us may not understand what that means, but the key to development is socialization. And so you have to be correctly socialized into yourself and into your history and your legacy. And that is the first step toward great success. But you can't stop there. And that usually centers around your family and the local community. But you can't stop there because as you grow from the early development, you move from the socialization into acculturation. And acculturation is how you develop your values, your beliefs, your role models, your patterns of behavior, how you begin to grow out of the youth into young manhood and womanhood as you head toward the adult stage. So acculturation and socialization, those are fundamental foundation principles that we need to put in place. And so education is not just a schooling process in an institution. It's the larger process that school is a part of, but also your development in your home and in your community and in your larger worldview. And so we need a renewed socialization process. I'm not struggling just for curriculum in the classroom, because the biggest foundation for me was actually at home. And my mother was conscious of making that home the foundation. And that foundation for my brother and I was not just Dick, Jane, and Spot, and Little Red Riding Hood, and the 7 Drawers, and Jack and the Beanstalk, all that stuff that children are fed. We did not get that type of nourishment. We got African nourishment, and that included Booker T. Washington. And he was one of the leaders, fought his way out of slavery and set up institutions. And the biggest institution was Tuskegee. But the most important thing in Booker T. Washington, his thing was put your buckets down where you are, get control of the land, make the land a productive process that helps you develop. So Booker T. Washington was our foundation. And then on top of Booker T. Washington came another brother who was in the opposite direction. He said, develop the mind and make sure that you have your mental capacity and stretch it to its highest level. So you had Booker T. Washington, who said, take care of the land. And you had W.E.B. Du Bois, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, who said, develop the mind. And so those were the twin pillars on which my socialization and acculturation was founded at home. And then it was topped off by a very special process that involved someone who had come up from the Caribbean, was inspired by Booker T. Washington, and wanted to emulate his great work in the terms of education, socialization, and empowerment. And that was Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So my problem was not Dick, Jane, and Spot, Little Red Riding Hood and the 7 Drawers, and Cinderella and all of that. It was Booker T, W.E.B., and Marcus Garvey. That's my pyramid of socialization and empowerment. And I use the triangle shape of the pyramid in order to process information, even globally. And that triangle shape, equilateral triangle shape, that's my teaching instrument. I call it pyramid analysis, because in order for you to take the knowledge from wherever it comes, you need to have an analysis of what it's all about. And so using the formation of the pyramid so you can begin to look at systems, that's the key. And the beautiful thing that we need to appreciate in Haitian history, that there was this consciousness, this struggle against oppression, and there was this revolutionary movement. And so clearly there was this understanding of systems, and that's the key. Systems is the key. And systems relate to economics. Every system has these 3 components. Economics is not just what you eat and put on yourself and your clothing. Economics is the key principle of how you control your world, how you are productive and capable. And economics, everything that's living has to have that productive, creative capability. Otherwise, it dies. And so this economics extended would include control of it, your development. And so politics is not just what politicians do. Politics is the management, administrative capability of economics. So that twin foundation of economics and politics is what everything stands on. You have to have a real understanding of that. However, there is a third component. Your productive creative capability, economics, has to be managed by your political capability, your management capability. But at the top of the pyramid is culture. And culture is the key. Culture is not just the dancing and the drumming and the clothes that you wear. It's the deep values that move you through the world and move you through the growth and development of your communities. So we have to have a systems approach to learning. Otherwise, it becomes a scattered and process which can be easily shattered. And the shattered consciousness is what we are suffering from. And one of my great brothers, Dr. Wade Nobles, he's the person who has brought to us this whole question of thinking through the psychology of knowledge and the psychology of development. And he says African people suffer greatly from a shattered consciousness and a fractured identity. And in order for us to be, in order for us as individuals, as family, as collectivities, we've got to heal that shattered consciousness and then clarify that identity. And the beautiful thing is that that's what we've done. That's why our Queen Mother has been so successful in her work. And that's why other Queen Mothers that help to nurture and raise us and lead us have been so successful in their work. And that's why our male component of the family have been successful, because they've had this socialization and acculturation and this deep culture that allows them to sustain themselves during this great struggle. So I like to teach, so it was no problem for me. I grew up thinking I was going to be a lawyer, Thurgood Marshall, and save the race in terms of civil rights. But I got into the teaching, and for me, it has become a science. And it's a science that's first and fundamental. And in the teaching process, I've been able to take our history and continue to use it for our uplift and our development. And so I had to give thanks to these ancestors who have moved with me, and these partners who have come along and have moved alongside of me, and these young people who are looking for leadership to help them in their direction as the future, as our future. And so it's been a great and mighty walk, as they say, around Dr. John Henry Clark, one of our greatest brothers. And this was one of the many works that he produced, and it's entitled Africans at the Crossroads. And clearly, we were at the crossroads during his lifetime. He was born in 1918. And we've been at the crossroads during my lifetime. I was born in 1937. And this book is entitled Notes for an African World Revolution. And somehow or other, we think because there was a Haitian Revolution, there was a French Revolution, there was an American Revolution, that the revolutionary process is in the past. We need to understand our revolution as a continuous process of change and transformation, rebirth and resurrection. And so he gives us a blueprint for that. Notes for an African World Revolution, the unfinished revolution of Nkrumah of Ghana, unfinished revolution of Lumumba of the Congo, unfinished revolution of Marcus Garvey of the islands of the Caribbean, unfinished revolution of Malcolm X on the shores of America, the unfinished revolution of the people such as Tom Mboya and his the great leader from Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta. And of course, in this revolutionary process is the experience of Haiti. And so we have to understand that revolution is a continuous process. You can't sit back and think that it comes and goes. And we have to make sure we cultivate a revolutionary consciousness, because we're facing not just a revolution in terms of historical development, you're facing a revolution of technology, you're facing a revolution of the mind. And so that we have to be equipped on all of these levels. John Henry Clark came up from the south of these United States, and it was against the law for him to go into a library, against the law for him to get a decent education. But out of his family background, he was able to get that strength he needed. He always told us, I had 3 deities in my life, 3 women that changed my world. One was my grandmother. Number 2 was my mother. Number 3 was my 5th grade school teacher, Eveline Taylor. And he made it clear that they saw his genius and they saw his potential, and they were going to cultivate it. It was and when he grew up as a youngster, he realized he needed the knowledge, but it was against the law for him to go into the library. But he was smart enough, working for a white man, to be able to write a note in the white man's name to get books out of the library. Now, this love of knowledge was so important for him, and he knew how difficult it was for him to get a book. So he accumulated in his home in New York thousands of books. And his great dream was to make sure that those books were sent down to the south of these United States so that they could fertilize the minds of so many of our young people. And so 15 to 20,000 books were sent to the Atlanta complex, where you have the Woodruff Library that services those 5 or 6 schools, Atlanta University, Clark, Atlanta, Morehouse, Spelman, and back in the day, Marsh Brown. And then Atlanta is a magnet. So there's so many people who come to Atlanta for training and for education. So you had Black youngsters going to Georgia Tech and the University of Georgia and Emory. And so when they wanted to get into the knowledge, these schools, these white schools, didn't have a decent library for about Black people, but the Atlanta complex had a growing library process. And so Dr. Clark gave his monumental library to that school complex there. And he has to be thankful that he had a 3rd wife, and she was a brilliant sister that came up from Jamaica to these United States and used her Jamaican background, which would include the consciousness of Marcus Garvey and the struggles in the Caribbean. And she came into Harlem in New York and got the skills of being an administrator, etc. So she knew the importance of getting those books out of New York and down to Atlanta. Then other Africans had they realized how important it was to make Atlanta a special space. And so one of our great brothers, he's from the South, he used Atlanta as his base, and his name was Dr. Asa Hilliard. And of the many of our generation, the many people that are part of our generation, he was the best of us. A combination of the mind, body, and spirit, a combination of the ancestor understanding, a combination of projecting a meaningful future. And he was brilliant. Never saw him lose it in the 30 or 40 years that I was with him and worked with him. He always had a sense of mission, purpose, and direction. He was able to marry a beautiful sister who is still carrying on his legacy, even though in 2007 he joined the ancestors. And he always recognized the foundation he stood on. His mother was an evangelist. So the African spirit moved through her. And his father was such a fighter, that his grandfather, that he, during the period of African enslavement, his partner for life was sold into slavery. And so he convinced a couple of his friends, this is Asa's grandfather now, of swimming across the Mississippi and following his wife into enslavement in Texas. And the brothers that he had to go with him got a little nervous, didn't make it across. I mean, they went back, but his grandfather insisted on getting to Texas and finding his wife and building for eternity with her. And he did. So Asa knew how to appreciate the ancestors. And he was an educational psychologist and a great teacher and a great spirit force. So these are the folks that we need to understand they've been furnished, they've been in the furnace of struggle, and they are hard as steel in the struggle. So we need to take the knowledge here and to take the knowledge there and synthesize it into this great march of African humanity. So Asa added, even though he was at Georgia, the University in Georgia, he put some of his materials with the Atlanta collection of Dr. Clark, and he left some of them at Georgia State. So I'm in that situation. I'm living here in books. We have thousands of books in this home, everywhere. You can't go into the bathroom to relieve yourself without stumbling over books. And in fact, I found that was a very comfortable place for me. Once I got rid of stuff I needed to get rid of, I could take a book, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and her great work. I could take Wade Noble's, and of course, his latest work was The Island of Mims, and that was in reference to the struggle of the Haitian Revolution. So here's a brother who comes out of the US experience, but he's able to take and develop the skills in terms of psychology, and then have this motivation to work and set up an institute of child development in Oakland. And then he continues to grow as the psychologist called a conference in 1987, a Melanin conference. And who was there? Dr. John Henry Clark. Who was there? Dr. Yosef Ben-Yakin. And who was there? Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, our great sister, Queen Mother. Who was there? Myself and my wife, Dr. Who was there? Dr. Richard King. Who was there? A whole host of us trying to take that branch of knowledge, psychology and whatnot, and to melanize it, Africanize it. So the first Melanin conference was in 1987. And thereafter, year after year, we moved that conference around the world. We grew with each other. Naeem Akbar became one of the key partners of Dr. Wade Nobles. And of course, we had our base in the West Coast, the Bay Area, Oakland, San Francisco. We had it in Atlanta, where the Dr. Clark and the example is clear. But you know that you had it in the Big Apple, New York, with Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark, because you had this movement from Black America coming into New York, the movement from the islands of the Caribbean coming into New York. And then later, from the islands of the Caribbean, the Spanish Caribbean, the Puerto Rican and Dominican component. And so New York has been a special base for the immigrants and African communities to find a base. There are probably more Haitians in New York than anywhere outside of Haiti. On my staff, when we set up the Black Studies Department, 3 or 4 of our key people were Haitians. Professor Frank Leroy was the leader of our Haitian component and our Caribbean component. And of course, we had this giant Edward Scobie came from one of the little islands, Haiti and Dominican Republic, the larger islands like Cuba, but Scobie came from one of the littlest islands, Dominica. But he had the greatest African Caribbean indigenous experience, and he brought it with him. He was born on the little island of Dominica, but he developed an Pan-African consciousness, which was an enormous contribution to the struggle. He became my partner at the City College, and he brought this Caribbean presence, this dignity of a brother who was tall and light skinned, and he had that prestige. But for him, the skin color or the size was not important. It was the need to Africanize. And so to have a giant from Dominica standing with me for I don't know how many years, almost 25 or 30 years, and to have other brothers from the Caribbean look up to him and work with him. And then we had partners from the African continent, Professor Bachwe from Ghana and Professor Kitemi from Kenya. And so we had this Pan-African community of scholars, women and men, and we were able to put our hands on thousands of these youngsters and move around the world. Professor Scobie, for example, came out of the hills of Dominica. He eventually became a leader. He was the mayor of Rousseau, the capital. But before he moved into that, he was taken, like most of our people, into the military. Just like Haiti has a whole tradition of the French involvement in the military. And of course, eventually, the military skills of Toussaint and the genius of Dessalines and the others led to this enormous Haitian revolutionary process that speaks truth to the world. Well, Scobie came from this little island, but the British needed people for World War II. So he was a veteran in the British Army. And when the army was over, he was in England at the time of the Pan-African Conference in Manchester. So he was an RAF pilot, knocking out German planes out of the sky. And after the war, he stayed in England, and he became part of the voice of America. He wrote a book on Black Britannia, Black people in the British Empire. And he was by my side when we developed the largest, most comprehensive Black Studies program in the world. And our idea was to put it in the community and in the homes and in the institutions, as well as in the classroom. And so for me to have this Pan-African family emerging was a great, great achievement. And no one of us could claim it. I was the leader, but I had various components of the African world that were working with me from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Kenya, from Mozambique. And so that we have to be able to see ourselves, and that's what I'm trying to get at, as an African family that has a mission, a global mission, which is a challenge because we're dealing with the principalities of death and domination and destruction. But we have to use the African value system of communal, cooperative, and collective enlightenment to counteract that 3D value system of the European domination, destruction, and death in terms of materialism. The African value system is, for me, around the 3 C's: communal, cooperative, and collective, spiritual development. And so it is a struggle between being sucked into the European value of materialism and finding your wherewithal there. And it's difficult for us because we are too spiritual to get stuck in a materialistic process. We have to expand that into a spiritual African process. And so that's why we're so glad that we've been able to get that African flow into our community. So when we develop the study programs, it included a material component. You had to master the information and the knowledge. But that information and knowledge was centered around the spiritual component. And that's why Professor Smalls, who was one of the young members of the staff we developed, but he was key because he was in search of the spiritual component. And wherever he goes, he has found it. At the city, he was involved, he had been involved with Malcolm X and his family, and his attempt to find that spiritual component necessary for him to continue his mission of struggle. And so Malcolm's family comes out of the Garvey movement, and also the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so Professor Smalls was expanding his horizon. He had a chance to see it through the value system that related to Malcolm X, El-Haj Malik, El-Shabazz. And he worked close with the family and that legacy. So when I met him in the 60s, late 60s, 69, and then when I came back to New York in 72, we partnered. And he has been one of the most serious brothers and sisters searching out this meaning of spirituality. He's, well, thank you very much. I can see her spirit, and and I know she's ready to, because she's such a fantastic combination of the Queen Mother and the nurturer, and standing alongside her menfolk to make sure that they get it right. I know how she knows how to whip children, young children and old children in place. I mean, I stayed at that compound and had a fantastic experience of seeing that community, and then going up country with those youngsters through those mountains in Haiti. Marvelous experience. And then going all the way up to the Citadel, an extraordinary experience. And then seeing what was done on hill after hills with all of that fortification. Unbelievable experience. So I defer to my sister so she can keep her program in place in the right formation.
Thank you so very much, King. Thank you so very much, Dr. J. We are coming to the part where we are offering the opportunity to our audience to ask some questions. You have, we were in a river with you. The river just flowed, and everything we did not know, the things we forgot, the things we were not sure about, you brought it all to us, and in such a wonderful way. You fed us in such a marvelous way. So now for those who have specific questions, we're gonna go through that. Franz, the mic is yours.
All right, yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Jeffries. Appreciate all the knowledge that you shared with us.
My pleasure.
Yes, we have a packed house here this afternoon, and there are a lot of people who are raising hands and anxious to ask a few questions, if that's okay with you.
Well, certainly, yes.
All right, fantastic. Okay, first,
let's make them short, and let's hope we can have 3 or 4 questions answered before 10:02, because 10:02 will be the end today.
All right, very good. So we have about 10 minutes. So we have, let's go ahead and get our questions while we have these 2 legends here with us. So first question is from Marlene. Marlene, go ahead and unmute and ask your question, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Dr. Jeffrey, thank you. And Bayyinah, thank you. My question, I'm gonna make it short, but what I wanna say first before I go into any question is, oh my God. I say, oh my God, because Franz had shared a short video with us of you, Dr. Leonard, before you came in, because I didn't know you really. I heard your name, but I didn't know you. So that was a younger version of you in that video. So when you came in, of course, I can see it's an older version. And
Yes.
when you started speaking about the whole struggle, the whole everything, so it was so moving. I couldn't help but cry because I've never heard someone put the entire struggle in 10 minutes. And I saw that basically you feel that you've done your part and now you're handing the baton to another generation to continue. So you emphasize on how important it is that we need to continue. And that's something I needed to hear, because sometimes we feel like, is there an end to this, or why bother? But what you stressed was that a lot of people have been working and doing this struggle for a very, very long time. And so I don't have any right to get here and say I'm tired or I need to stop.
And you don't have any right to worry about those tears of joy that you're feeling. Just let them flow.
So thank you for that. Thank you, both of you, for that. I really needed that today. That's all I wanted to say. I don't have a question. I wanted to say thank you for bringing that.
Yes, well, I certainly, Haiti has been one of the special spots of my living on the planet. And I went to Haiti in the late 60s. I was training Haitian young men in Newark, New Jersey in a manpower training program. So when I went to Haiti in 70, I saw these young fellows. Some of them were not working in machine shop, but they were driving cars. And so when I arrived in Haiti, which was a great joy for me, I came on an Air France flight, and all of a sudden they had an announcement that all the people who just got off the Air France flight, soyez bienvenue, vous êtes chez vous. And I said, wow, that made me feel good. But they didn't mean that for me. They meant that for the French passengers that came off. I mean, I was told that you come this way, please. And so I went, and I saw the young men and elderly men that had been training. I gave them a little wave, but they backed away. And then I got approved to come in the country, and I went to get my luggage. And then here comes a gentleman to greet me. And that was my chauffeur. He had a beautiful station wagon. He drove me into town. We went past Pétionville, and he pointed to his house on the hill and explained to me that it was not painted because he can save money by having this very nice house, but not having paint on it. Then he took me right into town and took me to a restaurant. And here's my chauffeur now. He was gonna buy me a drink, and then he pointed to the person in the restaurant that was the wife of the U.S. ambassador, who happened to be Black. And so I was welcomed to Haiti by the Tonton Moput. And so since I understood all of that, I handled it without any problems and got to my hotel. And we were trying to catch up with a young artist, and we did. So I've had the most fantastic experience in Haiti. And at that time, one of my favorite hotels was Ibuleli. And so we were able to enjoy Haiti. My wife and I have gone back several times. And that same thing, Haiti is special in terms of the history. Ethiopia is special. So we've been to Ethiopia several times in that same period of time, and we've met the Emperor Haile Selassie. So to meet the key people in these venues is very important, because the Emperor Haile Selassie was hosting a group of world scholars dealing with our history, and we were trying to reclaim it. We went to reclaim it from white scholars so we could get the true perspective. And so that I'm putting in a pitch for traveling. If you get a chance to travel, travel. Do your research before you travel, but travel is one of the best educational processes that you can have. And I remember.
Absolutely. Okay, Dr. Jeffries, we have another
Yes.
question for you.
Okay.
All right, next question is coming from Sarah. Sarah, you can go ahead and unmute yourself to ask your question, please.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi. My English is not that good, so hope you can be a little bit patient with me right now.
I am. Worried
Okay.
about. Yes.
Okay. And I'm not an African American, so my question is, I grew up with force and with
Say, Charles.
I grew up with force and with beating from my parents. How can I treat other Africans who also abuse me? With how can I deal with them?
Just repeat it a little bit. The first part of it was a little clouded. Just repeat it again.
Speak a little higher, louder, Sarah. We can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm coming after work, so I couldn't get home on time. So my
Just
question,
take your time. Just take your time.
okay, the first time. Okay, my question is, my parents did not teach me about my history because I'm from Zimbabwe, but I live in Germany. So now I'm trying to pick up everything right now, and my question is, how I have problems dealing with other African people. So how can I'm reading the book, I'm studying, I'm listening to Bayyinah Bello, listen to you, all the people, but I have problems dealing with African people because I grew up more with white people. Because my father is a professor, so we grew up in a very white neighborhood in Germany. So how can I, because I am a, because black men fear me. It sounds funny because I am black.
Yes.
How can I build a relationship?
Well, that's a very powerful question. Now, they're going to have to invite me back for another session. That's going to take a serious answer. And you are, that's wonderful that you can be able to express it and feel it, because there is a process that we have to go through, and it's a global process. And that has to do with our socialization and our acculturation. And you were explaining that because of your background, you have the African background, but being raised and socialized in the European context. And then you have this revolutionary part of your life, which is the great struggle for Africans in Zimbabwe. I mean, I've been to Zimbabwe many times. I've met President Mugabe and others. And so, yes. And so Zimbabwe is a special part of the Jeffries experience. In fact, I took Mrs. Coretta Scott King to Zimbabwe in 1983. She was on her way to the Women's Conference in Kenya, and then on her way to China. And it was wonderful because the Zimbabweans took this Black woman, who is not a representative of a state, and her husband's great work was so respected that they gave her a state dinner. And that state dinner was enormous because all of the key leaders were there, and they recognized her. And I got a special reward too, because they had me sit at the head table. So take this combination and master it. Okay. There are books on Black people who grew up in Germany who have a German mother and an African father. One has deep roots in Liberia, Massaquoi. And he's written a fantastic book on growing up. I have it here. I probably can't grab it soon enough. But he wrote a fantastic growing up with a German mother and an African father in Germany, and coming from a prominent family in Liberia. Brother Massacoy worked with the Ebony magazine. So yes, this combination you have is not your trial and your tribulation. This is your strength. You have a chance to look at the flow of humanity and the linkage between the different parts of humanity. I mean, I've had to deal with that myself when I grew up, and as dark as I am, as melanized as I am, when I looked at my auntie's house every Sunday, we had the family dinner, and I'm looking at on the wall, and there's a white lady that they say is my grandmother. And so I'm trying to make the connection between my dark self and this grandmother that's hanging on the wall. And it wasn't until I saw the picture of her husband and the family. My father was the youngest of the 13, but this almost looking white woman, she could not control who was her mother or her father. And as a result, but she was able to make sure when she married and made her decision, she found the good lookingest black man that she could find. That was my grandfather. And I have a picture of them with their children. But when I studied the history, come to find out that not only she went heavy on her African side, she was a pillar of the community. And when the Ku Klux Klan murdered my grandfather, her husband, in 1917, that did not stop her. She had her oldest children come back to Georgia, keep the family and everything together. And from that point on, the family has grown. So the mixture that you have, master them. That gives you reason to master the flow of culture coming from the different points of your development. And then if people look at you, make sure you know who you are. And no matter what they see, make sure you show a glow of Africanness. And be proud. Africa is the foundation of the human family. We're not a backwater of the human family. The human family is African. Europeans have stolen our history, and they have made it their history. And so I have a process. Where is it, Charles? Right here. This is a book that I did, some work that I did, and we have the African model is the model that's spiritual. The European model is the model that's material. You want to have the spiritual dominate the material. You don't want to have it by, so what your African component of your existence is the heart. It is the enduring part of your existence, and see the others as factors that are blending into the African humanity, because that's what life is. Africa is the birthplace of humankind. Everything else is an offspring of the African gene pool. And so stay close to Queen Mother, Bayyinah Bello, and she will help you through all of these. I mean, you just look as beautiful as you can be. I'm just seeing you, and I can see and feel that Africanness. And so that's your strength. That's your joy. I mean, my younger brother, he's 21 months younger than me. I came out looking like my grandfather, melanized. He came out looking like our grandmother, and he oh wow, child, and he was a beautiful light-skinned child. Now here's his picture. Here's his picture, and so this is, he was so cute when he came out. They called him Puddin', and so we had one dark and one light. And my mother said, "You're my children. It doesn't make any difference what your color is. You are one." And so he's the one who's raised these two beautiful brothers. One is the Congressman of the United States, Hakeem, and his younger brother is such a fantastic, he's a professor at Ohio State, and both of them are doing fine. And he has two boys, the oldest one, and the youngest one has 3 girls. And this is the picture of the, so this is what we've got. Yes. Yes, you can feel it. You can feel it. Raising these children, he's a professor, but he's got to put his time in raising the children. And my brother, this is the granddaddy, and I'm the granduncle. In the African tradition, the uncle has special responsibilities and special privileges. That's why the key to what you need to be is to Africanize yourself. Make that your project. Read as many books, get as many tapes, and you can see the strength. I mean, how can you? Here's my brother, and he refused to move away from me. He has been my bodyguard. He has been willing to give his life. When you see me at Harvard University, preaching my special word, that it's not about anti-Semitism, it's about anti-Chemitism, the inability to deal with the Nile Valley. A light-skinned brother standing next to me, that's my baby brother, ready to give his life for me. He's into a heavy African martial arts, and that martial arts has given him the ability to do wonderful things in his, and so, in fact, when the challenge came with the curriculum, and I was supposed to be dealing with Mayor Koch, the Jewish mayor of New York, everybody said, don't have anything to do with him. Dr. Clark even said it, and our great educator, Regent Adelaide Sanford. But my brother said, Lenny, if you feel that you want to engage Koch, you can. If you want to speak your special truth to Koch, you can, because I'm going with you, and my aura will protect you. So when you have this type of understanding and you have it because your people have moved and come from different places, master that and make sure you leave your mark and feel secure in that blackness and exude it. And that's what our sister Bellows does. Queen Mother's, even in her hair wrap, even in the way, in her compound, I lived there. I mean, she just exudes it. And for her to take these young people, and we got stuck up into those mountains of Haiti because there was an accident. And so our big bus, I said, how are we gonna get past this? But we patiently waited until that was handled. And then we got up into those mountains and we could feel the spirit of Dessalines. And
Well, I think that answer is going to have to do for everyone. We just know we're going to have to invite Dr. J another time.
Thank you very much, Mama Bello and
You're very welcome.
Dr. Baba Jeffrey. If I can call you like that.
Well, you got an uncle now. You can tell people, I done ran into an uncle. He just came out of the woodwork. And he's Dr. Len Jeffries, Nana Kwekuchwa Ajaman II of the Agogo stool in Asante. They made me a chief in Ghana and several places. And so wherever we go and we find like Queen Mother Bello, she's my sister in struggle and Brother Small's sister in struggle. And so a young person like yourself, when I go to place, my wife and I, we always try to adopt a female and a male and make them part of a larger family. So you have been publicly adopted by the Jeffries. And so ain't no need for you to do nothing but move through life with power and glory and success. And Brother Charles said, and also part of your family is this young man. This is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, marvelous Hakeem Sekou Jeffries. I named him after Sekou Touré in Guinea. His brother, the father of the 3 little girls, is Hassan Kwame Jeffries, named after Kwame Nkrumah. So before these youngsters could think or blink, we had named them with African greatness, and they have proved us to be correct. And so this is a part of your family now. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, when you see him on TV, and he's one of the leaders of the Democratic Party, and he's a hellraiser, you can say, that's it, that's my family. And the people are gonna say, are you crazy? Those are Americans. You say, yes, I know, but they're Africans in America. And I'm a part of their extended family. So just walk through life with power, glory, and be as successful as you can. Don't let anybody hold you down.
Thank you so very much. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Jeffries, Leonard Jeffries. I feel we should all stand up and applaud our king, brother, and everything else.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now it's my pleasure. The struggle continues, and we're on a victorious path.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Jeffries. We appreciate your presence here this afternoon. Before we wrap up, I do want to definitely make sure that I let everyone know about the film screening that's happening July 18th, 2020, The Role of Economics in the Development of Civilization, which Dr. Jeffries, Professor Small, and a host of other scholars, professors, doctors are a part of. So please support this film screening premiere. In order to get tickets, just visit that website right there, hapifilm.com. That would be great for you guys to support the works of Dr. Jeffries and company, and also to contribute to Dr. Jeffries' work and the preservation of his archives. There's his Cash App right there, Len Jeffries 1. So definitely, we have to support our elders. The knowledge and wisdom that they're sharing with us is invaluable. So we definitely want to make sure that we support them in every way that we can, so that in turn, we're blessed with that information that they spent their life collecting, so that we can move forward.
And our great scholars who made a great contribution, like Dr. Shekhar Diop, this happy film is a monumental achievement. Oh, okay. And so that we appreciate the efforts that you have made to allow me to put some of the knowledge that I have, again, in the hands of our people. And don't hesitate to keep in touch and cement the ties of family. A luta continua, the struggle continues.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Jeffries. We appreciate your time.
Dr. Jeffries.
Yes.
All right.
And of course, Fondation Felicite, here's all your contact information. If you want to reach out to Queen Mother Bello and support the foundation, there's all the information you have here. And of course, Bayyinah and Friends, sponsored by Thoroughbred Books. So I believe that takes care of our session today. So would you like to close us out, Professor Bello?
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Swimming through this river of knowledge is just absolutely great. We thank all of our ancestors who were with us. We bless all those who were present. Grow strong, courageous, powerful, and make the world we want for ourselves. Stay.
Ashe, Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Thank you so much, Dr. Jeffries.
Ashe.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. J.
All right now.
Stay strong.
Thank you, Dr. J.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mama Bello.
Thank you.
All blessings,
France.
all power, all peace. Thank you.
We love you, Dr. J. Keep doing your thing.
Love you.
That's right. The struggle continues, and we got to be on a victorious path. So I want to stay there.
It ain't over till we win.
That's right. But the
Thank
winning is in the mind and I.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Africanize your lives. Okay.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Elder. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So thank you again for joining us for another session of Bayyinah and Friends, and we'll see you next Thursday. Thank you.
Right.
Ashe.
Carry on.
Ashe. Thank you.
Okay now.